very happy to have everyone here at our 2020 annual meeting of the James Renwick Alliance. We're going to first hear from our president, JG Harrington. So JG, I would like to invite you to turn your video on and your microphone and give everyone a welcome.
Thanks, Jamie Ann. Welcome everyone to the James Renwick Alliance annual meeting. Tonight we're going to be talking about where we are and where we're going. We'll start by talking about some things we've done over the last year, including our revamped Craft Quarterly and Craft Weekend, followed by an overview of our finances. Then we'll talk about the Chrysalis Award for Emerging Artists and the 2020 Distinguished Artist Series, 2020-2021 Distinguished Artist Series. We'll be ending with a special presentation by Surf Plus, which provides critical support for craft artists in need, which has been particularly important this year. I also want to take a moment to thank two people. First, I want to thank my predecessor, Michelle Manat, who toiled endlessly during her time as president and who left the Renwick Alliance in great shape. I also want to thank Tim Tate, who's taken on the role of vice president for programming and who has got oversight and is responsible for many of the programs we'll be talking about tonight. Finally, I'd like to talk about one of the Renwick Alliance's key initiatives over the next year, the 50th Anniversary Acquisitions Fund. You're seeing right now, or should be seeing very shortly, some of the acquisitions that we've supported over the last 49 years. And as the Renwick Gallery approaches its 50th anniversary in 2022, we're renewing our long commitment to supporting acquisitions for the gallery's permanent collection. We've actually supported the acquisition of close to 200 works in the first 49 years of the gallery, and this fund is part of that commitment. I'm happy to say that we raised more than $30,000 for the fund during Craft Weekend, which is a great start towards our goal. If you'd like more information on the fund and the benefits of donating, please get in touch with us at admin@jra.org, which you'll see in the chat shortly, or let us know about that in the chat, and we'll get in touch with you. With that, I'm going to turn the program back over to Jamie Ann Jacobin, the director of the Renwick Alliance. Jamie Ann?
Thank you, JG. I'm going to be talking about our accomplishments, our 2020 accomplishments with the James Renwick Alliance, and I'm going to actually go ahead and share our screen again so we can talk about some of these. It's great to see so many new and returning guests in attendance, despite the uncertainty of 2020, which indeed was uncertain. We have had an amazing year, and I'm really looking forward to sharing all of that with you. So despite all of the things that we have seen, I'm so proud to be part of an organization that really supports American craft despite any challenges that may arise. Our mission boils down to three factors, as you know: public appreciation, connoisseurship, and education of the craft field. So in 2020, we were able to launch a new website just as the pandemic had began that contains a new section for news. So right under the screen you're seeing now is just a screenshot of the website, and underneath JRA Happenings, you can find that news section. It is in that section that we're able to share information about our members, topics in the field, and our own accomplishments. You can learn about the Renwick Gallery's 2020 Invitational Forces of Nature that was supported by the Alliance. You can see new works that have been donated to the Museum of Glass in Tacoma by the late Robert Minkoff, a former JRA board member. And you can see our monthly newsletter of exhibitions compiled by Brenda Erickson, which is an amazing resource of exhibitions that are happening around the world. It's unbelievable how much work that Brenda puts into that newsletter. So this website also makes registering easier for our guests and supports our needs for JRA Day, which you'll be hearing more about from JG later tonight. Another accomplishment of note that has happened due to COVID, but also in this unique time that we're in, is our Coffee and Conversation. This series was originally the idea of Tony Alimo, a former membership chair. And the series presents craft artists and arts professionals in an informational presentation and subsequent conversation. So that was started as a series for up to 30 members in our office. But because we have moved this online, we've seen 140 people plus register for each of these events, which is absolutely amazing. we really look forward to this exciting series continuing in January after the holidays. So please stay posted as we work on those that lineup now. So also in our move to go digital, we were able to host an online series of talks with a local event known as Artomatic. In this slide, you're seeing just a few of the artists that were recognized as people of note in the virtual show. So Mallory Lawson led an amazing committee of jurors and volunteers who hosted an entire month of programming around this local, longtime local happening, an art exhibition that happens in DC. So another kind of an important accomplishment that we had that happened on the cusp of 2019 and 2020 was a grant that we received from the Kaplan Foundation. So Dina and Jerry Kaplan, who many of you know as past board members, past donors, and longtime participants with the JRA, their foundation is dedicated to supporting the James Renwick Alliance Distinguished Artist Series and specifically our educational reach. So they let us know this year that they have committed to funding the next 3 years of our educational outreach for the DAS through a recorded series and also our internship program. So our paid internship program is secure for the next 3 years, which I'm very excited to announce. And we just found out that news maybe about 2 months ago. And now lastly, we did our wonderful event with Artomatic here in DC, but we also decided to do something very different in our first online trip. The James Renwick Alliance is well known for our educational trips that happen around the country and around the world. And we really wanted to continue that, where people could get together and learn from collectors, learn from different institutions, artists. And it was a surprisingly successful event. We had 75 attendees, all who gave us very popular reviews. And we received a lot of press from recognized craft organizations in our country who were impressed with our innovation to come up with this program. So just some of the things, this is the home of one of the collectors that we visited. We also saw inside the dining room of the esteemed distinguished educator Helen Drutt. We went on a zany studio visit with Warren Muller, who some of you, if you were there, remember. And we saw a very thought-provoking exhibition at the Center for Art and Wood. So those were some of our accomplishments for 2020. I encourage everybody to visit our website and see what we have coming up. I think that there's a lot of really great programs that we have in store for everyone, and you can see them on our new website, and you can also read about what's going on in our news section. So I'm now going to invite Jennifer Mitchell to speak about our Craft Quarterly, which is another accomplishment in 2020. Our Craft Quarterly now has its first paid editor, and that position is with Jennifer. So Jennifer, if you'd like to hop on and say hello to everyone and tell people what's in store on the most recent issue that they've received.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie Ann. I also wanted to thank Michelle, Caroline, Diane, and JG. All of the folks at JRA have been really helpful in getting the quarterly going, and the editorial committee is just outstanding. So thanks to everyone for the input. It's definitely not a one-person job, so everyone really contributed. And thanks also to panelist Cornelia Carey for her article in the fall issue. And I hope that you all received, read, and enjoyed the fall issue. We tackled a lot of issues in society. We were able to reach out to really amazing writers at the Smithsonian and different institutions within the craft field, which we want to continue doing. We're looking to our next issue, and we're wanting to focus on different themes. So in the upcoming issue, which will come out in the winter, we're going to be looking at education, looking at a lot of the JRA happenings, the 50th Anniversary Acquisitions Fund, overviews of Chrysalis Awards, the Distinguished Artist Series, Craft Weekend, Craft Education. So we're always wanting to keep a very firm root in what's happening within the JRA. And then we also want to continue to look outward as well. I'll keep mystery and exactly what we'll be tackling, but you can look out for some book reviews as well as overviews of work that longtime friends of the JRA are doing in the craft community. And we had a really strong editorial committee meeting the other night, and we actually got ideas for an issue after that in the summer. And I'm really excited about this one because we want to reach out to you all, the members, and canvas collections. We're hoping the issue will focus on collecting and also demystifying collecting for younger generations who we really want to get interested in the JRA, and hopefully the quarterly is one tool to do that. So you can look out for more information from us a couple months out, but in the meantime, you might start thinking about craft objects in your home that you might be interested in highlighting. I want to learn from you all. I want all of our readers to learn from you all. I think you're all experts in your own right in the craft field. And I'm also just thrilled to be able to engage with members that way. So those are some of the ideas that are in the works. I know we got some feedback about the first issue, and I'm happy that people enjoyed it, and we're always wanting to continue to serve the JRA in different ways through the quarterly, and I'm deeply, deeply, deeply honored to be in this role, and it's always a pleasure to connect with the JRA. It's like a family to me. I can tell it's such a close-knit group in the short time I've been here. So thank you to you all.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I've got my issue here just in case people haven't seen it. So if you haven't seen it, it's now on our website, and you can see the entire issue. I think maybe it's in reverse. It's in reverse for me. You can see the entire issue online. So with that, I'm going to invite Gwen Paulson, who was co-chair of our Spring Craft Weekend, although I have to call it Craft Weekend because it happened in the fall, with her husband, Jerry. So Gwen, if you can join us, that would be wonderful.
I'm here. I want to thank everybody who did participate in our 3-event, 2-day extravaganza. We had fabulous feedback from everybody, which really we appreciate it because it was a lot of work. But we had great chairs for all of the events, and that made all the difference. I'm really pleased to tell everybody that we netted $150,000 for this, yes, 3 events, 2 days extravaganza, and we our 50,000. We made 50,000 more than was our goal for the budget. So that's just great. Now I'd like to thank all of our chairs because this weekend couldn't have been as successful, except that we had outstanding people for each event. And first like to thank Sharon Buchanan. She is our new Shirley Jacobs, and I say that in the best of ways because I didn't think anybody could do better than Shirley, because no one could say no to Shirley. But now we found out that people cannot say no to Sharon too. And a lot of this $150,000 really came from Sharon's efforts. So thank you so much for all that you did. It paid off. Secondly, I'd like to thank Andrea Yurovich for a great job that she did on our panel discussion. I was never worried about Andrea because I know she's a person, if you ask her to do something, she's going to do it well, and she did. And she got a great moderator, which makes all the difference. since we had the educators, we knew that we would have a good discussion because these people are used to doing slide presentations and doing presentations. So I think that all came off very well, and we had great participation for, even though it was a virtual event. Well, for our gala, nobody could have topped Tim Tate for our gala. He so outdid himself. I mean, you know, truly, you know, with everything that he put on, and all the people that he invited to participate, made it such a unique gala. Again, you know, it was virtual, what could we say? But he did such a fabulous job of making a virtual gala a real gala. And it was also great that we were able to get Michael Monroe again as our MC, because he's kind of like a beloved member of the family. And so it was great to see him and to have him participate in that great gala that we had. And it helped, again, raise money for all of us. Then I'd like to thank both Sandy Mitchell and Barbara Berlin for our home tours. We had 3 outstanding home tours. Again, great participation from so many who wanted to make sure that they could see 3 very different but great collections. And it's good because we had glass, we had ceramics, you know, we had mixed media. We really had a great show and a great turnout. So I just, again, want to thank everybody who participated for the weekend, because you all made it fabulous and we raised so much money. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. And of course, thank you so much to you and Jerry for being chairs of the weekend. We are indebted to you. So
Thank you.
With that, I'd like to invite JG back on to talk to us about our finances and a little event we call JRA Day.
Yes, so I'm doing double duty tonight, and I'm providing a short financial report. The most important point I want to make is that despite the pandemic, the Renwick Alliance is in solid financial shape. This is largely due to the way we've managed our finances over the last several years to ensure that we have adequate reserves. These reserves gives us flexibility to respond to adverse events like the pandemic, and also to take advantage of opportunities to advance our mission. At the end of fiscal year 2019, we had just under $279,000 in net assets, down from $295,000 in fiscal year 2018. Almost all of our net assets are in cash. Of that amount, $71,000 were restricted assets, up about $8,000 from 2018. About $20,000 of those restricted funds will become unrestricted as they get moved from one account to another because we're done with what we needed them for. As of last month, we had about $271,000 in cash. That is before craft weekend was over, just to be clear. As we have for the past several years, we donated $50,000 to the Renwick Gallery in fiscal year 2020. This funding supported the current show at the gallery, the Renwick Invitation. As everyone knows, there is a lot of uncertainty going forward about our programming and fundraising because of the pandemic. But given our reserves and the success of Craft Weekend, we have every reason to believe that we are well positioned for the future from a financial perspective. Now that we're done with finances, I'd like to talk about something a little more fun, which is our next event, JRA Day. This is our annual craft show that showcases artists who are members of the Renwick Alliance. This year, it's online, which means that we can include more artists than ever before, 55, and that includes more than 20 artists who've never been in the show before, but it also includes many of our old friends. Jamie Ann, do we have slides for this? I can't remember.
We do, but I was thinking of going off script and showing our and showing the website. How would you feel about that?
That would be fine. This year's artist, this is the site she's showing you, is a site for sales. We have a separate website, which we'll talk about in a little later, but this is where you're going to be able to buy things. You see where it says shop. This year's artists include artists who have been in ACC craft shows in Baltimore, in SOFA Chicago, the Creative Crafts Council show here in Washington. We have 5 people who have works in museum collections, including the Racine Art Museum and the Renwick Gallery, and even 3 artists who have worked in American embassies around the world. Because we're online, it's not going to be a day, it's going to be a week. And the show will open on November 28th, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and run through December 5th. It is, of course, a great way to do your holiday shopping, much better than any of the other ways you could shop. We're still looking for sponsors for the show. Sponsorship is $100, and you get recognition on the show site and, for the first time, early access to the show. So you can get first choice of the work that's available. You can sign up to sponsor by getting in touch with us at admin@jra.org, which is going to show up in the chat again. Or you can let us know that you'd like to sponsor JRA Day by just telling us in the chat, and we'll get back in touch with you. You can find out about all the artists and their work, as well as other details about the show and our move online at jraday.org. That's jraday.org. We'll look forward to visiting you visiting us, rather, online from November 28th to December 5th. While we won't get to greet you in person, we'll be thinking about all of you the entire week of the show. Next up is Nikki O'Neill. We'll be talking about the Chrysalis Award for Emerging Artists.
Nikki, can we ask you to, there you are.
Yeah, okay. Gives me great pleasure to talk about this once again. One of the most important missions of the JRA is to support emerging artists working in one of the craft media. This is an annual grant, unrestricted grant that is generously donated by a JRA member. The artist awardee is also given the opportunity to be publicized, share their work in a public forum, meet with other craft artists, JRA members, and collectors, as well as visit the Renwick Museum and other museums in our area. The benefits to our JRA are a wider recognition of our organization and its mission, and generation of interest in the JRA by newer artists and institutions that are not in our local area. A little award history is that in 2016, we awarded Shay Wilkinson, an emerging artist, the $5,000 prize in fiber donated by Darcy Walker. Dean Allison in glass was awarded the JRA Chrysalis Award in 2018, and the donor was Gwen and Jerry Paulson. And Richard James, a glass artist, a mixed media artist, was given the award last year, donated by Patty Young. So this year, I'd like to, first of all, I want to say thanks to those donors who have stepped up and have shown their interest in their craft field of choice. This year, the award is in ceramics. And thanks to the generosity of Rebecca Ravenel, $5,000, it will be given, it has been given to an awardee. Unique this year is that we have waived the application fee and with just a single request, received an additional $3,000 in donations by 10 of our JRA members. And so that would allow us to give 3 additional awards of excellence of $1,000 each in recognition of their work. This year we had over 100 applicants, the highest level since the Chrysalis Award began. I want to thank the 2020 jurors who worked really hard to look at all of the images and the statements and the applications that came from the applicants. Michelle Erickson, ceramic artist from Hampton, Virginia. Michelle Erickson. Cass Johnson, our own Cass Johnson, executive director at District Clay, and Ibrahim Saeed, who is an Egyptian ceramicist and adjunct faculty at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I thank them sincerely for their thoughtful evaluations. They did an excellent job, and there were really tough choices because we had great applicants. So I want to show you the first slide of the, and I'll show 3 of work of our $1,000 awards of excellence. This is the work of Chris Rogers. You could see more examples of his work on his website, and those are on our JRA website. He was awarded this for his innovative, highly original work in a unique way of using ceramics. The next award of excellence is to Eliza O. I'm not sure. Her constructions are very architectural and they were fascinating, and it shows a very innovative and thoughtful and precise way of using ceramics as a medium. The third award of excellence goes to Maxwell Mostardo. He has highly sensitive structures that are amazing in their texture, and the judges thought that his work was it's like denying the material. It was very unique and very interesting. So our JRA 2020 Chrysalis Award, $5,000 plus goes to Kate Rogers, Memphis, Tennessee. The scale and novel use of ceramic materials was amazing to the jurors. And so even looking at it, it's hard to realize how innovative she has been with her materials and how effectively they have been displayed. I want to thank Rebecca Ravenel for donating the $5,000 unrestricted award to make this award to Kate Rogers and make it possible. I'm happy to announce that the 2021 award will be given by the generosity of co-donors Barbara Wallanen and Brenda Erickson in the medium of wood. And so I should say that normally we bring the awardee into DC. This year that won't happen, but we have other things planned for the awardees to be able to participate and show their work to the JRA. I also want to welcome the new Chrysalis chair. I've done this for working on this for 5 years. I'm stepping down for a little while. Kathy Furlong will be the new Chrysalis chair next year. So check our website, look at the work that these amazing emerging artists have done. And I will say that we've had feedback from the past awardees who have said that this award has changed their life. It gave them opportunities that were incalculable, and they are so graciously thankful to the JRA for the awards that they've been given. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. And we're going to be inviting Rebecca Ravenel to speak about our Distinguished Artist Series. So Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. So, before I talk about DAS, I'm really happy to have sponsored the Ceramics Chrysalis Award this year, and I'm glad to hear that other people are stepping up. And I'm sure Jamie Ann would love to hear from anybody else who wants to step up for future years. So I'm going to talk about the DAS, the Distinguished Artist Series, and for anybody who doesn't know what that is, a brief summary. It's a very long-standing program wherein 4 times a year we bring in a craft artist from around the United States to give a weekend of programming. So that includes a Saturday short workshop, which focuses on that artist's special techniques. And then we have some social events, a potluck dinner on a Saturday night. And then Sunday they give a lecture, free and open to the public. And the lecture concentrates more on sort of the arc of their career and their philosophy and influences. So it's a great weekend. You really get to know a lot about that particular artist. So as with everything else this year with COVID, we didn't get to do our usual way of bringing in the artists for the weekend of personal events, in-person events. However, we've moved everything to an online format. So beginning in February, we're going to have our artists, and I'll just name the artists that we've invited this year. So February 27, 28, we're going to have the ceramic artist Ani Kasten. March 20 and 21, we are going to have the textile artist Bisa Butler, and I'll tell you one thing about Bisa. Usually, so Ani's going to give, all the artists are going to do their Saturday demo as sort of an in-studio visit. However, Bisa was unable to do both days, so she's going to give the Sunday lecture, and then we're really excited that we've partnered with her gallerist, Claire Oliver, who represents some incredibly interesting artists, including some artists that really are kind of unknown to the JRA family right now. We're going to highlight her work in her gallery, including 4 kind of emerging fiber artists. So that's going to be a really great weekend. April 24 and 25, our local artist, Kate Kratz, who I think is on the call tonight, is a mixed media artist who's been getting a lot of attention lately for her very kind of provocative and timely work. May 22 and 23, we're going to have the glass artist, Christina Bothwell. So again, you can find all this information online, and the Saturday events you'll need to register for. The Sunday event, I'm not sure how that link will work, but check it all out, and we hope you can join us.
Thank you, Rebecca. And with that, and perhaps without further ado, I'd like to invite Surf Plus to join us on the call. They're going to be telling us about the field and their work kind of during COVID and all of the things that have been going on. So Cornelia, Carey, and Cameron Baxter, can you join us?
Yes, happy to. We have a visual presentation. So great to be with you all. Thank you for having us. Great segue to end with Christina Bothwell, who will have a feature in the Craft in America series on December 11th in their next episode called Storytellers. So I highly recommend that. And there's a quick little piece with my visit to her last winter, which was actually my last trip before the shutdown. So definitely put that on your calendars. Thank you all for inviting us to your annual meeting. We are really honored to be here. And it's so wonderful to see so many dear old friends and familiar names. And many thanks to Jamie Ann and JG and really all of you for your years of support. Special shout out to JRA member and Surfboard member as well, Patty Young, who was on this call, as well as a few other former Surfboard members that I was able to catch out of the corner of my eye, Jan Schachter and Leslie Farron, and there are probably others that I haven't seen yet, but I know they're here. I just have to be honest with you, I would rather be with you at the Navy Pier having breakfast on a Saturday morning, as we've done for so many years. But we will take a Zoom call happily to be with you. The JRA has been a longtime friend to surf, and not only to surf, but more importantly to artists. And I love that our missions are so in sync. Yours celebrating craft artists through education and I can't even talk, through collecting and recognizing excellence, and surf helping build a stronger safety net so that artists can have strong and sustainable careers. So there's a lot of shared relationship there. So now for the next slide, and I realize I didn't introduce myself. I'm Cornelia Carey, the Executive Director of Surf Plus. I've been with the organization for almost 25 years. I had brown hair when I started, and have enjoyed working in this field immensely for probably all the same reasons that you all are involved with the JRA. What an incredible group of artists that we get to support. But I'm actually more excited to introduce to you Cameron Baxter Lewis, who is SURF's Director of Emergency Relief and Recovery Services. And we have never had a formally trained disaster management professional until we hired Cameron a year and a half ago. We're thrilled to have him, especially during a pandemic. So I want Cameron to share a little bit of his background with you before he hits the ground on the rest of the PPT.
Great, thank you, Cornelia. And thank you so much for having us this evening or this afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. I realize I need to update this picture because I think I look like the dad of that guy right now. But very excited to be here with you tonight. As Cornelia mentioned, I'm very passionate about the field of emergency management. And that really began shortly after Hurricane Katrina. I was deployed as an AmeriCorps NCCC member along the Gulf Coast to rebuild houses that were impacted by the storm. And I guess there were two takeaways I had during that time. The first was that I feel like disasters sometimes take down walls that people have up in their normal lives between one another. And secondly, I think that it really does bring out the best in people. And I think I continue to be impressed by the generosity of people's time, of their money, of their spirit to help one another. So needless to say, I was hooked on emergency management, and that led me into the field of more national service programs, including AmeriCorps Vista and Peace Corps, and serving in a number of disaster program manager roles with Corporation for National Community Service, Points of Light, Save the Children, and most excitedly, Surf Plus. So no surprise to this group, you guys are all experts, but artists were vulnerable before the pandemic. And a survey that Surf Plus conducted in 2013 found that 75% of artists and craft disciplines had less than 3 months of cash reserves on hand. And, you know, even the quarter of the folks that had more than 3 months, we should be concerned about as this pandemic reaches its 8th month after it was federally declared. Even if you had some money on hand, it might be a pretty tough spot that you're in now. Likewise, American for the Arts hosted a survey shortly after the pandemic that found that 95% of creative workers had lost income and 62% of creative workers had become fully unemployed. I will also mention that Surf Plus held their own survey for studio-based artists and found that the top 3 things that studio-based artists were concerned about were show cancellations, which we've definitely seen a number of, loss of direct sales, and loss of revenue through gallery sales. So the data continues to be collected, the landscape continues to change as the pandemic and as the world evolves, but understanding that backdrop, I'm going to kick it back over to Cornelia to talk about how we as Surf Plus decided to respond.
Great, thanks, Cameron. So after almost every major disaster that Surf has responded to has required a different approach, and certainly COVID-19 is no exception. And so we looked at it as sort of 4 pieces of our work. First with advocacy and policy, then education and resources, then relief and recovery, and not necessarily in that order all the time, lots of overlapping circles. So we're going to kind of walk you through each of those circles, and we can move on to the next slide. So early on in the pandemic, it became clear to us that the most significant relief artists would experience to address the impacts of the pandemic were going to come in the form of federal relief aid. And so let me just add, you're seeing this picture of Craig Nutt and you're going, what? But since retiring from SURF as our director of programs, Craig has actually been working with SURF on a number of advocacy related matters, including our partnership with Americans for the Arts and Arts Advocacy Day. So it was sort of a no-brainer to pull Craig out of retirement again and away from his studio, sorry to his collectors, but to have him join forces with the Cultural Advocacy Group and Americans for the Arts and many other advocates to ensure that the CARES Act and other relief packages could address the needs of artists and other self-employed workers. So he's really been working on this with us since March. And in more recent weeks, Craig and Cameron and some other SURF staff have been working on a series of policy proposals for the next administration that will essentially put creative workers back to work. And that for us includes integrating creative workers into direct relief and disaster relief and recovery, improving the treatment of creative workers within the federal disaster response structure, and also for us developing recommendations for simplified disaster loans that address the needs of non-employer or low employee businesses, which are largely the type of businesses artists in the craft field oversee. So that's our advocacy and policy frame. Next up here is our work in education and resources. You may or may not know this about SURF, but since Hurricane Katrina and the Gulf Coast in 2005, we saw so much loss on the coast there, and realized at that time that we would never be able to right anyone's life. No amount of money we could ever raise could help put somebody whose studio or home had been reduced to a slab, and that we really needed to invest in preparedness and mitigation. And so we have gone about creating a range of resources on preparedness, studio safety, and the ultimate act of preparedness, legacy planning. So of course, we hadn't factored pandemics into our portfolio. And so since this shutdown, we have really expanded our resources and information. We've aggregated a lot of information from other places and with other arts organizations, and now have a fairly robust resource that includes things like other kinds of available funding and relief funding for artists, how to navigate the CARES Act funding, mental health related resources that Patty Young has helped us to aggregate. And so that's been an important part of our work. And then also, the next slide, we've been, you know, like many of you, we took a lot of our work on the road prior to COVID, where we would present workshops at conferences, et cetera. Now we're just Zooming like crazy. And these are some of the places where we've been and presented, and certainly offer to you all and other colleagues that are on this meeting, you know, our interest and willingness to share our resources and information through your own webinars and education programs for artists. So then we move on.
So SURF a COVID-19 relief grant program that provided $1,000 grants to artists working in craft disciplines that were facing dire needs due to food, medical, or housing. You know, for those of you who have led a program of this scale, it's really a team effort. And something that we're particularly proud of are that 83% of the recipients from this program were new to SURF Plus. So thank you to you all for helping us spread the word. A couple other notable things about this slide are that the recipients were from 46 states, 3 territories, and the District of Columbia. And if you look at all of those different colored icons on the map, those are actually different mediums of artists that received a grant. And the top 3 mediums were jewelry, ceramics, and then woodworking. Those were our top applications and recipients. Lastly, I will note that 68% of the awardees were Black, Indigenous, people of color, and 24% were folk and traditional artists. So instead of hitting you over the head with more numbers, I think it would be more impactful to share the stories of a couple of those recipients. And the first of which is Kevin Poirier from the Ogallala Lakota tribe. Kevin learned his art form of carving buffalo horns 30 years ago, and many of you may recognize him. He's won awards across the country, including the 2018 Best in Show at the Santa Fe Indian Market. And that piece of his was purchased by the Museum of American Indian in Washington, D.C., and is currently on display on the main floor. And I will note just a quick thing in the background, you'll see those little monarch butterflies. Kevin carves those as well, which are really unique. That's not just a beautiful background. But I think Kevin illustrated to us that even artists that are renowned and as famous as Kevin have been really devastated by this impact. It's not just those who are up and coming in their career. Another artist we'll note from the COVID program is Judy Tafoya from the Tewa tribe. She's part of the Santa Clara Pueblo region, which is really known for the Black pottery, which you see here. Some beautiful images of her work. Judy is a 6th generation ceramicist who learned pottery from her grandmother. And she has a great quote for us that I will read. The Surf Plus COVID-19 relief grant was a godsend. Thanks to the grant, I was able to catch up on my gas and light bills, get wood and manure for my pottery, and buy the things I needed for my 2 grandkids that I'm raising. You know, if COVID had not struck this year, I think all of us would be slightly different people, but I would likely be here today talking to you about this astronomical disaster season. COVID-19 aside, we've had earthquakes that started in Puerto Rico around last Christmas that continued to hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes. The wildfires that raged across the West Coast, and now our 30th named storm, Hurricane Iota, for the season. So, you know, we help artists that are experiencing natural disasters, but we've also seen an uptick in the other career-threatening emergencies, including injuries or accidents or thefts. And in total, our programs have served, including emergency relief and COVID, 780 artists, over $1.2 million in assistance. So I'm going to highlight a couple of the beneficiaries focused in disaster, but just keep in mind that there are other emergencies that artists are going through as well. The first of which is Franken Groywau, who is not only a wonderful ceramicist, but he's also an educator and has worked for many years at the School of Plastic Arts in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Franklin's studio was located in Ponce, which is in the southern part of Puerto Rico, and that's really where a lot of the earthquake damage occurred. And this image you see in the background are actually some of his pieces of work that were destroyed. And sadly, he lost power right before he was commissioned to do his biggest piece of the year in terms of income. Estelle Jackson is a white oak basket maker from Alabama who first off, let me talk about her. She worked as a folk art apprenticeship master artist for the Alabama State Council for the Arts for about 20 years. And she had a tree fall in her house from a series of tornadoes that moved across the South in February of this year. And lastly, I'll mention Felicia Rice, who's created and published limited edition arts books, broadslides, and prints. And you may recognize Felicia from her Visionaries episode at Craft in America. The CZU complex fire in Northern California destroyed her home, her studio, and unfortunately all of her inventory and works. And you can see a picture of that fire in the background. In Felicia's own words, she said that more than one person recommended I apply for a Surf Plus emergency grant. I'm so glad I made the effort. The grant came immediately, has contributed immensely to helping Moving Parts Press rise from the ashes. So with that, I will turn it back over to Amelia.
Thank you. As we kind of round out the piece of our work in COVID-19 relief, in August, SURF joined Artist Relief as a field partner, and Artist Relief is an initiative that was put together by 6 nonprofits that have since April raised over $20 million and have been giving out $5,000 grants to 100 artists weekly in all disciplines. I think they're around about $15 million in grants so far. We have just been in awe of that effort as it's a model, I think, for other disasters, for organizations to join together and support each other. So I'm thrilled to say that around 300 artists in craft disciplines have gotten one of these $5,000 grants, and 1.5 million has gone to craft artists. So it's a terrific effort. It will sunset the end of December, and I think it's a terrific model for the future. And we're very thrilled to be supporting their efforts and have been serving as advisor and as well. So now moving on to the next slide. So what's ahead? We're planning a 3rd cycle of the COVID-19 relief grant that Cameron talked about. We're trying to raise $200,000 more to be able to make that happen. We are also going to be offering our Get Ready grant program again, which is a program that provides $500 grants for artists to do anything in their careers to be more prepared. We're really going to pivot it toward recovery-oriented activities. So we'll be offering that in 2 rounds in the coming year. We're also continuing our work in the arts advocacy space, and certainly getting creative workers back to work and all the related activities there. But we also undoubtedly will be responding to more major natural disasters ahead. So, and really looking toward being able to call the phase recovery. Right now, we're still very much focused in the relief space. So I think that leads us to this slide, which is really all about the you. And I love that it's Lauren Mabry, since you all have been so involved with her career this past year. But we have had an incredible outpouring of support for the work that we do this year, which has made possible this significant grant giving that we've been able to do. It's come from over 2,000 donors. Those are individual donors, artists, collectors, fans of craft artists, foundations, and then a number of people have hosted a range of fundraising events, from Facebook fundraisers to, I'm sure many of you hopefully got to see the Jeffrey Spahn Gallery fundraising event. And there have been a number of virtual open studios and virtual shows that we've been a beneficiary of, and greatly appreciate the support, as more than ever artists are really in need of this critical assistance. And as we, hope for another relief package in the near future, I will say that, particularly this last cycle of our COVID-19 relief grant, the situations were particularly dire for folks, very concerning when you're talking about, food and shelter insecurity. It's shocking. So thank you for supporting our work, and please continue to do so. And I think that takes us to our last slide of great thanks to you all. That's Lee Suggs, who got a Get Ready grant a year or so back. If any of you know her work, it's just really wonderfully delicious to the eyes. This is how to be in touch with us if you have any questions or want to learn more, or have something you want to provide as a volunteer or whatever. So please be in touch with us, and thank you again for this opportunity to be with you all this evening. And now I'm turning it over to JG.
Thank you, Cornelia. And thank you so much for that presentation. I mean, Surf Plus is such an important organization, particularly now, and it's really great to hear about the work you're doing. I have one cleanup item, which is that Gwen Paulson has asked me to thank 2 other people who were critical to Craft Weekend this year. Norman Mitchell, who organized our auction, which was generously run for us by Rago Auctions, and Juliana Mali, who originally was in charge of a brunch that didn't happen, but took on a myriad other tasks instead. And that's it for the James Renwick Alliance annual meeting. I appreciate your interest in the JRA and the work we do for American craft. I hope to see you virtually or in person when we can do that again soon. Thanks again.